Jesse, what's going on? Welcome to Dad Edge.
Oh, Larry, I'm so stoked to be here. Thank you for sharing your platform with me and just having me on here.
I'm excited. I mean, I know you're not a dad, obviously, right?
No, no. I mean, in this
Is
day and age, I guess I could be, huh?
yeah, oh my God. Well, if you choose to be one, right, you probably could be, be like, I'm a dad today, but tomorrow I'm a mom. And then tomorrow I'll be a panda after that, maybe a cat.
I identify as non-disabled, and I'm hoping that one day magically my legs will start working.
Oh my gosh. It's kind of funny. I know we're gonna digress, but for a minute, but like I am not kidding. How old are you, by the way?
31.
31. Okay. So you're quite a bit younger than me, but like I have two teenage boys and they actually have people in their high school that identify as animals
Hmm.
and they need to be referenced appropriately by their teachers. And I look at my kids and I'm like, do you know what would happen to me if I was in high school and I told my teacher that I'm a cat and you have to address me as such? Like they would literally, I'm not kidding, physically pull me out of their class and just tell me to get out. Like I went to I went to an all boys Jesuit like school and they had zero tolerance for BS. Like these Jesuits, man, they grab you out of your desk and put you out in the hall I mean like it was nuts, man. Like and you just never get away with that when I was growing up.
I think we need to go back to zero tolerance because
I
it's just
agree.
gotten out of control.
Yeah.
There's people that identify as transabled, and they're purposely going out and having surgeries to either become amputees or paraplegics to purposely become disabled. It's a sickness and an illness. We can't change our physical being just because we decide that's what we want to be. And that's a hill I'll die on. I think that it's absolutely absurd that we are accepting this as normal, um, because there's nothing normal about it.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea that was going on.
Yeah. Look up transabled. It will blow your mind.
Oh my gosh. Whew. Okay. So, well, let's start. I actually want to start with how you grew up. What did
Yeah.
your family look like growing up? What'd you do?
So I grew up in Northeastern Ohio, and my mom was actually an over the road truck driver, and my dad was her dispatcher in the basement because they had their own trucking company. So I grew up without my mom or her guidance, which means that as a hormonal teenager, I was off literally running the streets, doing whatever I wanted. I snuck out whenever my mom wasn't home because I knew better. If my mom was home, that woman would catch me. I don't know what it is. Moms have a sixth sense. Dads, when you have your little girl, you're like, my princess would never do that. I'm sorry, your princess will do that. I had my dad completely buffaloed, and I would sneak out as long as mom wasn't home and literally at like 13 go run the streets and hook up with boys and do all the things that no 13-year-old had any business doing.
Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
wait, just out of curiosity, like why didn't your dad drive the truck and your mom dispatch?
My mom just that's how they met. My dad was he owned a distribution center in Pennsylvania, and my mom happened to pick up there one day, and that was just the dynamic of their relationship from the day they met.
And he swept her off her 18 wheels.
100%.
Like,
It
wow.
was game over. I write about this in my book. So my book, Power in the Role, should be due out later this year. And I talk about my parents' story and how wheels have been a common theme throughout my life. I grew up racing off road. I raced four wheelers, drag raced four wheelers at like 10 years old. They were lowered on alcohol, had a wheelie bar. We were racing against grown men, my sister and I. Went on to race off road in a series called GNCC, which is woods racing. And we would race on mini quads for 30 to 45 minutes. And then when I went to adult quads, it was 2 hours and we'd be racing through the woods.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was sick. I had the
That's
coolest childhood.
unreal.
I took it for granted for sure because I have to take accountability for my actions. I was also a kid and I didn't have the guidance. My parents were great, always provided for me. I was very loved. I just didn't have great guidance, which is what, landed me. I got pregnant at 15. It was because I was sleeping around, giving my body around, and I never learned from my mistakes. And I think that was the biggest thing is we never take a moment to actually reflect on the actions we took to create a certain result, whether that's good or bad. And our actions truly dictate what happens to us. It's not a matter of luck or I hate when people are like, I'm either lucky or unlucky. It has nothing to do with that. I got paralyzed because I was making choices and being with somebody who wasn't the best at driving a motorcycle. I made the choice to get on the back of a motorcycle with somebody who wasn't very well experienced, who wasn't prepared. So when that woman made the U-turn and didn't stop, he wasn't paying attention enough to stop either. But it's my fault. I made the choice. And I think when you take extreme accountability for the result of your actions, it allows you to go to a different place in life and have a different view of yourself, a different confidence, and you carry yourself in a way that's just so powerful.
Wow. Do you remember anything about that day? Like as far as like getting, because I think you were unconscious for a week, correct?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was an atheist most of my adult life. I growing up, we went to church camp and stuff, but I just never really had faith or believed in God. And I was at my long-term ex-boyfriend's grandmother's funeral. So my grandparents passed when I was a kid. And she was my version of having an adult grandmother. Woman taught me how to make biscuits and gravy the Southern way, talked stories of growing up in Kentucky poverty. So when she passed and I was at her funeral, I felt a warm calmness come over me from head to toe. And I knew everything was going to be okay. And I thought it was with Granny's passing. But the next day, I'm in this motorcycle accident where I code twice and had to be resuscitated. And I saw my own grandmother who passed when I was a child, and she said, "Jessie May, it's not your time. I can't stay with you and you can't stay with me, but you have things to do and people to get back to, so you have to go now."
So
And
wait,
sh
can you tell me a little bit more about that just in detail?
Yeah.
Like what was that like? Like what did you see, feel? Like what was
So
that like?
my name is Jessie Michelle. My grandmother from my mom's side made nicknames for everybody, and mine was Jessie May from her. Her and my aunt are the only 2 that called me that, and I hadn't seen my aunt since we moved from Ohio to North Carolina. I hadn't seen her a lot for her to call me that, so it wasn't something that I knew right off the bat. I remember a white room and it was so bright, but my grandmother was a taller, skinnier version of my mom, similar to how I kind of remembered her, a little younger looking. And I felt so safe and at peace. And she just told me I couldn't stay with her. And I had to go. I woke up. I told my mom. I don't remember telling my mom that. But she said, I woke up, I told her, and then passed back out. And my mom looked at my dad and was like, John, she died. There's no way. And so my dad literally was like, Jackie, you're full of it. There's no way. She didn't die. He got my medical documentation 2 weeks later to submit to AFLAC accidental. And it said coded twice, had to be resuscitated. So the fact that I'm even sitting on this world still is a blessing in itself.
Wow, that is unreal.
Mm.
Um, so do you actually remember like the impact and the actual thing happening?
The last thing I remember is metal crunching. I saw that he wasn't slowing down, the SUV wasn't slowing down. I was like, "Oh gosh, we're about to collide." And so we're on a street bike. So on a street bike, the passenger sits a little higher,
Right.
and I just tucked into his back, closed my eyes, and braced for impact. Woke up 5 days later in the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Um, and then so you had a spinal cord injury, correct?
Correct, yeah. So I have
Yeah.
what's called a T4 spinal cord injury where I'm paralyzed from the middle of my chest down.
Okay. But so and I know right now presently like you're doing absolutely unbelievable things. You're in the fitness world, health world. You've done competitions, you've done the world's toughest mudder 4
Yeah,
times, correct?
yeah.
4 times. That's a
Oh,
24-hour race. 24-hour race.
I've
That's
done more
unreal.
nighttime Tough Mudders than daytime.
That is unbelievable. Okay,
Yeah,
so this is the Jesse now, right? And I'm
yeah,
curious. The story I'm telling myself is post this accident. Did you have this mentality coming out of the gate, like, "Hey, I'm unstoppable," or was it
absolutely.
like absolutely you went through like the normal, um, the post like a post traumatic, physical event, like where there's anger and there's denial and there's sadness and all these things that you're grieving, right? So tell me about that.
I got out of the hospital and I ended up with an infection in my intestines caused by antibiotics. So, as a paraplegic, I don't have bowel or bladder control. And that's my specific spinal cord injury. Some people have it, most people don't. So I have to use something called a catheter to cath myself. In the beginning of my injury, I didn't find the catheter I'm currently using. There's one brand out there that's just, in my opinion, superior to any other brand. It goes in smooth, comes out smooth. It's amazing. Where a lot of catheters, it goes into your urethra to drain your bladder. And when it comes out, the urethral environment pulls the lubricant off, causes tears. Those tears allow bacteria in, ultimately creating a UTI. Use antibiotics to treat a UTI. So the antibiotics killed all the good and bad bacteria in my gut as well. And I ended up with something called C. diff, which is an
Yep.
infection in your gut and intestines.
Mhm.
And you will never forget the smell of this fecal matter if you ever get it. It is nonstop, even for a non-disabled individual. You would poop yourself nonstop. Pepto-Bismol, no type of anything stops it. Like you have to seek medical treatment, and I end up hospitalized. So I get out of rehab. I'm home for a week. I end up back in the hospital again with this infection, and I got back into inpatient rehab, and I realized everything I needed to know when I got home again. And it felt like such a shortcut in that moment by being able to go home and go back to rehab. It was like, cool, I need to know how to transfer to a toilet and go to the bathroom well. I need to know how to get dressed and undressed proficiently. I need to drive. I need to be able to be independent and come and go as I please. So that second round of rehab on Sundays, I told my nurse, I said, I'm leaving. You can give me my medical supplies or not, but I'm going to learn how to drive. And my dad would come pick me up from inpatient rehab. I would sneak out, and she gave me my medical supplies, and I would go take driver's ed. And I'll never forget my first time peeing in public on a public toilet. I got stuck, and it was probably 30 minutes to an hour in the bathroom of me trying to pull my pants back up after going to the bathroom, and I had to ask a stranger to help me pull my pants up. And it's like, it's so dehumanizing because I'm a 22-year-old adult who now is going back to being a toddler with a fully functioning brain. And so I had a 22 rifle sitting in the bedroom and I looked at that thing every single day. And I have a brain injury from the accident and I thought to myself, Jesse, if you use this 22, you're just going to make your brain injury worse. You're not going to kill yourself. Like don't make a mistake. And so I gave it to my dad and I wanted to die every day, every single day. I just really didn't want to be here. I didn't want to struggle. I didn't want to do it. But my grandmother said that it wasn't my time. And that's truly the only thing that kept me alive. I didn't go into my faith in the beginning. I didn't dive into it at all. It's not that I didn't believe, but I just didn't pour into it. Continued to drink, continued to party. Um, it wasn't until probably 2, 3 years in, I kept falling on the floor. Couldn't get myself back up, man. Like, you think, "Oh, I'll just pop back up." There is no popping back up when if your upper body is not where it needs to be, you're not getting your dead weight from the floor back to your chair. And so I'd fall 2, 3 times a week, have to wait 4 or 5 hours on the floor for someone to come get me. I'd struggle for, like, an hour trying to get off the floor, then I'd get really tired and I'd give up. That was my biggest struggle, and it got so frustrating in the beginning. Everyone's like, "When are you gonna walk again? Did you get any new movement? Did you get any new sensation?" And I'm like, "Man, I'm just trying to figure out how to not get bladder infections and how to get back up off the floor. Walking is the least of my worries." It really put life into perspective.
That is unbelievable. Yeah, because when you're, I mean, you talk about a vulnerable state. Where and you said it, where you're dependent on other people. I mean that it it wreaks havoc on our mental health.
Yeah.
And you said that at that point in time you weren't really involved with your faith too much. And what was the first thing that maybe happened during that journey where you've evolved into the person that I'm speaking to now, right? Which full of life, and you just the way you operate, like your energy is contagious. I'm not gonna lie. As soon as we opened up, this interview and I saw you, like I felt it. And but in order for someone to get to the place where you're at, there had to be that first domino that fell, that created that. But what was that for you?
I fell on a hotel room floor. I had a meltdown and I recorded it and posted it to YouTube. And it's called Frustrations of Paralysis. It got like 20,000 views in the first month of it being up. And it was a lot of people saying, "Me too. I feel this way too. Yes, absolutely." Oh, and it was just the feedback, right? And I thought, if I put out this negative energy, what happens if I put out positive energy? And so then it made me start being very mindful. And around this time, I also found adaptive CrossFit and I found nutrition and started different diets. Like I think I did paleo, whole 30, tried different types of food sources, trying to pay attention to how is this food negatively affecting my body. I live in a world of disability. My organizations, my two online organizations, Wheel With Me Foundation and Wheel With Me Adapt Fit, Wheel With Me Adapt Fit's a fitness application for wheelchair users. The nonprofit serves the independence of wheelchair users. We have summer camp, empowerments, things like that. I was so involved in the community. I started to disable myself more than I really was. And I just refused to give into it. It wasn't until like I was doing what I was supposed to do, but I didn't track my nutrition. I was still under eating. I wasn't where I was supposed to be, right? Like it's like I had good intent, but I didn't have guidance. And I think so often we go through life with the proper intent, but no guidance behind it. So it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? So yeah, I'm eating clean, but a salad's not actually nutrient dense. It's not fueling my body properly, right? And I fell into this warped sense of diet culture, which led me 5 years into my injury. I lost all my independence. My shoulders broke down so bad from under eating and under eating on protein. I was eating 30 to 60 grams of protein a day when I started tracking my nutrition. Like, and I'm talking 5 years of doing that. So think about the havoc it's wreaked on my shoulders that are being used as legs. Like, we don't consider these things because we only see life through the perspective that we've experienced it. Getting disabled is my superpower. It shows me that food is power. A lot of my ailments, pain, bad bowels, anything, infections, oftentimes were nutrition based, and that's what caused it. And that's why I'm so focused on helping people improve their nutrition, because it's like I'm in this world of disability. I see chronic illnesses. I've worked with numerous people that have POTS who we fix their nutrition, get them just simply eating enough whole foods. They're out of the chair. Like, we could solve so many issues, but our big government, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's not a conspiracy if it's true. Our big government wants us sick. That's what makes money. When I got injured, they handed me 13 pharmaceuticals and said, "Here you go. This will help this will help that, this will help that." The only ones I take are bladder meds. I use natural remedies for everything else. Spasms, I use electric stimulation. Nerve pain, I stand in a standing frame, use electric stimulation, and watch what I eat. Like, it's not that hard to manage your body naturally, but because we have this quick fix of a pill, we refuse to actually put the effort in to allow this machine that we're living in, this amazing vessel that's capable of amazing things when you give it what it needs. We underutilize it. And then we're like, I don't know why I'm sick. And we trust the doctor to give us all this stuff that's going to continue to keep us sick. Disability is my superpower. It allowed me to see that firsthand.
It's unreal. I agree. My background, I actually have a mixed bag, so I have a degree in sports medicine with a minor in nutrition. So like, for 30 years, I've been fascinated with food and supplements and, the right kind of supplements. Like you and I are both first form advocates, right? And there's a reason behind that. They make their supplements the right way. And so many people don't do that. Right. And then I've been a customer of theirs since 2009, but like, everything from electrolyte balance to the right water, to, everything like the timing of your meals and all these things are so important. But I also was in the medical field. I sold pharmaceuticals and I
Oh,
also sold surgical devices. So, and for 5 years I was in spine. So I saw, I saw probably at least 500 spine surgeries. But I'm very familiar with what you're talking about with the antibiotics and C. diff. I sold 3 antibiotics, and we always had to, share that information of how often that would happen, to patients in clinical studies with C. diff. Um, Most people, I think you're right. They go for that quick fix
Mhm.
from, let's just say, the physical and the nutritional. I'm so curious. I really want to dive into your mind. Cause like this energy that I'm seeing, that I'm feeling, and the person that I know you are, like there's been a lot of work that you've done. And I know you've said that, your disability is your superpower. And I would love to know, where does that resilience come from? Like what things over the past 10 years have you really dove into to learn this thing? You talk about the body and how, what an incredible machine, an incredible vessel you said that we live in. But the mind, I heard this quote: the brain is the heart, is the hardware, but the mind is the software, and we have to constantly be upgrading and growing that operating system. So for you, what keeps this on point?
Well, you just said it, right? We have to keep upgrading that operating system. I mean, 75 Hard changed my life, changed the entire way that I view myself. And it made me realize I was solely identifying by my struggle. And my specific struggle is being physically disabled. I'm like, well, because I'm a wheelchair user, because I'm disabled. And I just kept leading, well, because I'm struggling, because I have this struggle. And I was allowing that to hold me back. And I think my first personal development person I was exposed to was E.T., the hip hop preacher,
Oh yeah.
and then Inky Johnson and Lisa Nichols. And I listened to those guys hard in 2018. But honestly, it was the pandemic. I didn't realize how much I had been running. I traveled nonstop from the time I got injured till the pandemic. I was on a flight almost every week between I am a brand ambassador for the catheter company that I use, which now I'm fast forward, I've been with the company 8 years as a brand ambassador. I'm their spinal cord injury specialist. So I go to every major rehab facility and talk about their products that have positively impacted my life. Right. Like I do these amazing, I get to do all these things. And then the pandemic hit. I was on the national developmental team for wheelchair curling, so I was traveling for that. I was traveling to speak, and then it stopped, and we were locked in the house. And now I rent the so crazy side God story. My parents bought this house about 18 months before I was paralyzed. The entire basement was set up for a wheelchair user. Wide
No
doorways,
way.
roll in shower, bars
What?
beside the toilet. All we had to do was put a ramp and a lift in. This is my destiny. This is meant for me to happen. I moved home 6 months after my parents bought this house. I get paralyzed a year later. You can't tell me this isn't my story. This isn't meant to be. And when I got locked in the house, at first it got really, really dark. I was not eating at all, pretty much, because I was in college still, finishing my associate's degree, and I was in 2 summer 8-week courses. I took chemistry and statistics on top of each other because I thought it was a great idea. And I just wasn't eating. My shoulder health declined rapidly, where I went one day to the next, I wasn't able to get dressed. I wasn't able to transfer independently. I was losing all of my independence. And I just prayed to God. And I was like, look, I'm ready. I'm ready to give you my entire existence. I'm ready to give you my whole life. How can I serve you? In what capacity can I serve you? And I feel like at that point, God was like, okay, bet. And that's when I found 75 Hard, I found Andy, I found First Form, and that changed my life from that physical side. But the mental stuff started when I started doing Tough Mudders. I think 2017, 2018. That first world's tough that first world's toughest mudder, I quit. I got cold
Really?
and I quit. And I remember, and it was crazy. I had an amazing team. Sam Dancer was like our one of the big guys on my team, and then I had amazing people that have done, 4 or 5 worlds. I had a great team. There was no reason I shouldn't have reached my goal, but I quit and I got cold and I gave up, and I never wanted to feel that way again. ever again. And I remember leaving there and being like, I will never feel that way again. And there was still moments where I give in and didn't. But then when I got in 2020, when I hit that rock bottom of losing that independence, losing that strength, and then I found first form saved me. I'm having a conversation with Will Grumpke at dinner one night, and
Love that guy.
he's amazing. He's like, Jesse, it sounds like you're just not eating enough protein. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And literally, I left that trip. He showed me the first form app. I left that trip, started tracking my protein, became an advisor in the app. And 6 months, my shoulder health turned around. My whole life turned around.
How much protein do you take in a day now?
Oh, 165 grams.
See, that's what I'm talking about. And you're a female,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. And I think people are grossly under eating their protein.
100%.
Yeah.
And the female misconception is it's gonna make me big and bulky. Like, no, you want to be lean and toned. You want to consume protein. I was skinny fat all this time. I weighed 120 pounds, still looked a little bit fluffy. And I wasn't leaning out. Oh, probably because I'm only consuming 30 to 60 grams of protein. My body's in a constant breakdown. And that goes for men as well. I think all men need to get their T levels tested. And if your T and they're telling you that 400 is a normal T level, that's not a normal T level. So my business partner, I co-own a wellness facility here in Charlotte, North
Okay.
Carolina. It's called Freedom Longevity and Wellness. It's incredible. We have cold plunge, infrared sauna, red light therapy, hyperbaric chamber, 5X, PEMF, like literally all encompassing rehab recovery facility. And he got his T tested. The doctor said 400 was normal. He's like, absolutely not. Started taking TRT. His body composition's completely changed. His energy levels have changed. His mood has changed. It's amazing how that one little thing, it was like within a week, his energy changed. Within a week. But nobody's telling you that because, oh, if it's the mass majority is that low, then that's normal. That's not normal.
It's not normal. Actually, you want to hear a kind of a funny story? It's on the other spectrum of this, which is, we talk about normal. So I was in the health field, like I said, and so are you, but normal used to be, I think it was 1265 was the high side, but it was still within the normal range, but that's gone down. I think the normal range now is 900 ish, but I've never done TRT, not once. In fact, my diet is about 50-50, if not 60% plant-based, shockingly.
Wow.
And it's just my blood work. Like I used to eat animal protein for every meal and a lot of it. And my blood work actually kind of didn't like it.
Mm.
I had high levels of some like cholesterol, ApoB. I actually had high estradiol,
Wow.
and my testosterone was in the 600s when I was eating like all animal protein. And I'm not knocking animal protein. I
Yeah.
still 30-40% of my diet. I still eat it, but like eating it as heavy as I wasn't good. So like I've been this way ever since 2019, so 5 years. And I went to get my doc was like, "Hey man, like we need to get your blood work done." I'm like, "Okay." Came back 985 testosterone, and my
Yeah.
doctor flipped out. And he's more old school. He's kind of like a crabby old man, to be honest. And he's like, "Hey, we need to get you checked out." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Are you taking steroids?" I was like, "Dude, I'm 175 pounds. Does it look like I'm taking steroids?" He's like, "Well, what about testosterone and hormone replacement therapy?" I was like, "No, I've never done any of that." He's like, "Well, something's not right because your testosterone are way too high for your age." And I'm like, "Okay, so what are you saying?" He's like, "Well, you might have a tumor on your kidneys, like on your adrenal glands, or a tumor in your testicles." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, because it shouldn't be this high." And he made me go get a CT scan of my abdomen, and it came back totally normal. And he's like, "Well, I guess you just have naturally high testosterone." And I was like, "Well, I eat super clean, like I eat kind of like what my body likes, and I train all the time and drink a ton of water. I don't drink alcohol that much, don't do drugs, so like maybe this is a good thing." Like, but like the whole normal thing, oh, normal. But yeah, that was my abnormal reading.
It's so frustrating that people don't get labs done regular like, I get mine done every 6 months.
Same. Yeah.
And I will say that my overall labs improved when I started eating my meat specifically from a farm. It's a family operated farm here and butcher shop, which is really cool that I have access to this like 5 minutes from my house here in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina. Um, but they raise all the animals and everything, and I notice a big difference when I eat store-bought, like grocery store meat compared to the butcher shop meat and this farm raised meat. And I'm talking like from a spinal cord injury standpoint, my nerve pain, if I eat a steak from the grocery store, I'm going to poop myself and my nerve pain is going to be through the roof.
Isn't
Every
that
time
crazy?
within 30 minutes, I feel like I'm getting stabbed on my left side within 30 minutes of eating this grocery store meat. Same thing with sugar. Sugar does it to me too. Some dairy does it to me, and some processed sugar or processed foods as a whole, like crackers and things. Those things will do it to me too. So I'm like, what are we fueling our body with that's negatively impacting it at that level? And I'm fortunate enough to have my spinal cord injury that tells me what's negatively impacting me. But non-disabled people don't. They just feel tired or run down or they're test is low or their labs are off as a whole, right? Like we that's why I say get your labs tested, pay attention to what you eat, understand food and how it's serving you, and understand that that TikTok trending diet you see might not be good for your body because every body performs different.
Yeah, I think there's so much confusion out there
Yeah.
when it comes to nutrition. Like, I mean, like even I've got this is my whole background, right? But I'm even confused now. I'm like, you see so many different things. I mean, I'm waiting to see like here, try the corn on the cob diet. It's the whole new thing. Like, and like someone with a cutting board with like 18 corns on the cob, like, or I don't know. I'm just
I could see
it's just crazy. But
that.
yeah, I mean, so I think we really like nailed the nutrition thing.
Mhm.
I want to talk about something that we started talking about before we hit record, and that was your view on men need to be men.
Yeah.
And I purposely didn't ask you about that because I want to be, I want to know what your response is, just raw, you know? So like, what do you mean by that? Men need to be men.
I think men are very oftentimes in my since becoming a wheelchair using woman, in the beginning, a lot of it was how I carried myself. But now it's a game, like, it's different. I'm a bad bitch, and I know that. I know that to my core. Men oftentimes don't give me the time of day because they're shallow in that wheelchair aspect, and society has this warped view of the wheelchair, right? And it's like, first of all, open up your mind to more, be willing to do more, but also be a damn man. Like, take care of yourself, provide for yourself. So many men out here want to leech off of a woman. It's either one or the other. Like, I'm either not interested, they're just not interested at all. Like, they see the wheelchair and that's it, or they see the opportunity to freeload. And it's like, where are the solid men out here that are willing to think outside the box, willing to go the extra mile, willing to work hard on themselves and help themselves become their very best? It's very rare that you meet manly men. Like, you can have emotions, you can speak your mind, speak authentically, feel a certain type of way, but also like don't be so sensitive. I should not be more masculine than you are. And I think it's I don't know if it's I have a warped perception because I went through something that forced me to become who I am today, or if it's truly like we just have so many boys that are lazy and they wanna be buried in their phone and eat the trash and not take care of themselves, and it's just like, we need more men. Stand up for what's right. I think of, like, not to be stereotypical, but, like, I think of, like, Ian Smith. Ian Smith is a man. That dude stood up for what he believed in, his values, his morals during the pandemic, right? Like, he refused to close his gym, refused to stop providing for his family, did what he had to do. Like, do not allow your moral compass to bend just because of who you're surrounded by or the latest trend or what your girlfriend's holding over your head. That's the other thing is like, y'all, my dudes, women use their vagina to control you. Stop letting that happen. We're letting broke people all around create broke people. We need our men to dive into themselves. Journal. You don't have to share it with anyone, but journal. Get those feelings out, get those emotions out, understand who you are, understand what you want. What does your perfect day look like? Understand that. Understand where you're going in life, truly what you want and what you value in life. Create a moral compass for yourself and then go out in the world and try and build that with someone else. But we cannot keep having broke people break people. And it comes from both sides. I'm not saying that women are perfect because women are just as broken. We have this warped sense of reality of how we're supposed to look. We need the filler, we need the implants, we need all this surgery just to be pretty because there's this warped sense of reality. And it's so frustrating. I'm so frustrated with society. I'm like, yo, I'm a freaking wheelchair using woman out here, just like more masculine and doing more than most men. And it's like my whole life, I looked forward to building something with somebody as far as, especially in these later years of me actually becoming the person that I want to be with. That's the other thing that goes on both sides as well. You've got to become what you're trying to attract. If you want a high performing individual that you can build with and grow with, like you have to be that person too. You can't expect to just insert yourself into this high performer's life and then accept you living under their standard. Like you can't expect people to change. I think too often we go into things expecting people to change. Friendships, relationships, family situations. Understand that it is what it is and you need to understand your emotions. Understand your emotions around things. Again, this goes as a whole human being thing, but like the more you understand your emotions, why things make you feel a certain way, where you want to be in the world, what you want to do, the more you can go out and execute that. But if you're just living kind of lost in the ether, scrolling social media, just kind of consuming the way that society wants us to consume, whether that's social media, alcohol, sex, drugs, all of these things have a negative impact on us. You know why relationships keep failing? The amount of porn out there, the amount of half naked girls on social media. Shoot, I can open my Instagram and see a nipple right now. You know what I mean? Like it's the truth. Like and it's so out of control. And it's up to us as individuals to take back that control in our own life and say, you know what? This is not productive or constructive to who I want to be and regaining that moral compass. So men, please find that moral compass and be that man that you can be in life.
Give me the traits of, I mean, I know you said the moral compass, but kind of share with me, like, as you look at a man or maybe men that you've had relationships with, and you're like, this guy was literally the definition of a good man. And this guy over here was the definition of a good man. And here's how they operated differently.
I'm gonna go the one direction. I was in a 2-year relationship early in my injury, and this dude worshipped the ground I worked on or rolled on. I don't walk, rolled. And the dude worshipped the ground I was on, and I treated him like complete shit, and he stayed for 2 years. 2 years, and he was a great man. Like, he made sure I was provided for. If I needed something as far as, when my shoulders this is around the time my shoulders went out, and when my shoulders went out, he came and lowered my bed for me just so I was able to get in bed after we were broken up, like, 6, 7 months after we already broke up. He still came to do that. Like, the dude just truly was genuine and cared and wanted the best, but he had no backbone in standing up for himself. So I just walked all over him. I literally stomped on him. Like it was disgusting the way I treated him, which is why during the pandemic I got to spend my time with my parents and recognize, "Oh, Jesse, you're kind of emotionally abusive like your mom. You should probably check that trait." And it made me hold a microscope over what I wanted in life and what I didn't. And I made an entire list, and it was like for me, a man is somebody who goes out and does everything he can in his power to provide for his family. A man is somebody that will not bend or break his moral compass because of temptation or what somebody else tells him to do. A man is somebody that puts his well-being, his personal growth, his personal development, himself before everything else so he's able to provide for everybody in his family. A man takes care of himself physically, emotionally, mentally. He's authentic in who he is. He's confident in who he is. He doesn't allow anyone else to dictate his happiness. That's a man.
I agree with you. But I think that men are under this assumption and perception that they have to do the opposite. I have to literally die on the sword of serving everybody else while I completely destroy myself. Right. So like there was this TikTok that I saw, and I was at a retreat last week that I hosted in Utah, and there was a TikTok that one of my clients showed me, and it was this guy who he was literally raging, like just absolutely raging, and a lot of his stuff that he was talking about was his life and his perception, but he was like, I only get to see my kids for an hour and a half a day. And normally I'm working like 12, 14 hours a day. I barely get time to work out. This morning, like I had enough, like I had a pre-workout and I went in, I was going into the gym and then I got called into work and like I just keep working and working and working. And like he was just like, he was screaming into his phone. Like this guy was so angry. But while he was like, and that, to be honest, like that used to be me. Like that used to be me. And I used to just complain and gripe about it. And I didn't even know the word at the time, but like I was a victim.
Yeah.
And I was actually stating out loud why everything in my life wasn't working. So it was almost like I was trying to prove to myself and other people why this wasn't working. And I'll never forget one day my wife looked at me, and my wife is named Jess as well, Jessica.
I love that.
And there's something about maybe you Jesse's, but she she looked at me one day, and I love like the tough love my wife gives me. I've known her for 28 years. We've been married for 21 years, and she'll call me forward. We don't use the term in this house call you out. We use the term call you forward because that basically says I know you're better than what you are right now, and I'm going to respectfully ask you to step into that. And my wife, I'll never forget it. Like I was like complaining like that one day, and my wife looked at me and she's like, yeah. She goes, "You do realize you're the only one that could change this, right?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Larry, like you don't like your job? Go find another job. You don't like this about like you're not patient enough with the kids? Go get therapy. Be more patient with the kids. You want to be a better parent? Pick up a book, read it, listen to a podcast. Like you want to be a better husband with me because you always say that. Let's do couples therapy." Like, and she basically was like, "Do something about it.
Yeah.
Stop complaining and stop." And the other thing too, which I loved about her, and at the time, I hated hearing this. I literally hated hearing this because it was so true. And I see this now all the time. She goes, you're talking about how hard you're working and how long you're working and how you hate your job, but you're doing it for the sake of our family, to provide. So like I can stay home and I can, and we can, live a decent life. And yet you're complaining about all these things. She's like, you're wearing this stuff like a badge of nobility. And I was like, oh my God. I don't know what it was, but when she said that, I was like, I hated even saying this. I was like, oh my God. I was like, you are 100% right. Like, because as much as I was complaining about it, which is weird, I
Mm,
didn't see this at the time. As much as I was complaining about everything in my life that I didn't like, there was a part of me that's like, but look at how hard I'm working. Look at how
yeah.
hard my life is, but I'm still doing it.
Mhm.
And it was almost like this badge of nobility of absolute negative energy. And I didn't realize that I was the only one that could change that. And,
Yeah.
and luckily I did. It took a long time, but I see guys go through that. So I love that you laid all that out. Like that, this is the first time in almost 1,200 episodes I've got to hear that yin and yang of a good man who knows his moral compass and the way he operates versus a guy who's quite frankly more of a victim.
Yeah. And the world's, I mean, guy or girl, the world's full of them, right? And I think that we allow our struggle to become our narrative
Yeah.
rather than allowing our struggle to strengthen us.
Hmm.
And we have 2 options. You can be the victim or victor. Those are your 2 options. Both of them take the same amount of work. I mean, the one's more work on the front end, the other one's more work on the back end. So where do you wanna put your efforts in, you know? I
Yeah.
think I really am curious, was there ever a point in your relationship where you didn't give your wife or your kids what they needed emotionally and mentally to be their very best? And how did you navigate through that? Because you see this so often where men become so consumed by the mission and what they're trying to create that they start to neglect certain things in their life and not see how they're kind of bulldozing the relationships in their life.
100%. In fact, in every season, even now, there are moments where I'm doing that. Even though like I've been doing this mission, this podcast for 10 years, like I still fall into that. Here's the common denominator. It's fascinating that you and I are having this conversation. The common denominator when I do that, I'm not taking care of myself.
Oh.
Yeah. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
dang,
And
that's
and
funny how that works.
and that is the common denominator. And like my wife will just be like, it's like this, it's literally this vicious cycle, right? One domino will drop. So like
Mhm.
let's just say, I decide to take a little bit of time off of physical fitness, which that's hard, really hard for me to do. But let's just say I do. Let's just say I go a week without it. I will start to spiral a bit. But then that will turn into, well, I'm just gonna have this pizza, and I'm just gonna drink this alcohol tonight. In fact, I might get a little drunk tonight. And then I do that. Right. So then I do that. Then because I'm not taking care of myself mentally and physically and emotionally, I start to become overcome with guilt and shame and like this shell of a man that I am. And then when my kids and my wife interact with me, I'm not that person that they know. I'm actually short. I'm irritable. They probably feel like they're annoying me, right? Which, by the way, the side effect of that and the result of that is I am not there emotionally for them. I'm actually a shell of a human being because I am not putting my oxygen mask on first. So, like, I had this great mentor of mine who actually taught me all about like that plant-based diet, and he's very very big. He's like, listen, he goes, you've got to stack. He's actually from New Zealand, so he sounds way cooler than this. He's like, but let me tell you something right now. All right. What you need to do, man, is you need to stack the odds like in your favor. What you need to do is you need to stack so many positive things in your day, right? Physical fitness, your meditation, your prayer, your workouts, your nutrition, like everything. That way these little negative things that want to seep in there, they don't have any room to get in, right? So that's how he talks to me. I'm like, oh
I
my
love
gosh,
that.
that is so true. Because as soon as like one of those little things start to seep in, everything else starts to fall, right? I'm not saying you can't like let loose a little bit, but you better get right back on the horse. And I'm
Mhm.
talking like quick, before things start to get really out of control. But that's what I've noticed 100%.
Well, is it because people lose perspective of what they had to do to get to that point and not realizing that those habits that we always revert back to were there way longer than the new person that we're trying to create?
I totally agree. I just had a interaction with one of our clients today where he left our group coaching environment. And I was like, "Can you give me some feedback on why you're leaving?" He's like, "Man, I got nothing bad to say." He's like, "Dude, you guys are awesome. In fact, it's been so awesome that I just find that I really don't need it anymore." And I think that that's sort of a great perspective. And I said, "I appreciate that perspective. I'm so glad you've learned a lot of things." I was like, "I want you to think about this because I've been doing this for 10 years. The sword that doesn't get sharpened often will become dull over time, and the things that once were a good habit will go away and you'll slip back into old habits. I was like, you can't sharpen the sword with a cupcake. You
Yeah.
need iron to sharpen that sword. And in our environment, it's iron sharpens iron. I was like, so if you want to go, go. I was like, but I encourage you, like, and you know this from physical fitness, right? Like, you don't sustain like doing you don't sustain the physicality that it takes to do a 24-hour tough mudder if you work out 3 times in 6 months. Like, you have to train for something like that, and you got to train consistently. Otherwise, it's like sharpening with a cupcake, right? And he messaged me right back. He's like, "Oh, damn, dude, you're right. I'll stay." But like, I think when we get comfortable, that's when we could potentially fall. And that I always warn people, like, especially even myself, I'm like, dude, don't get too comfortable. Like, don't sit back on your laurels because this is the time where things going to get bad again because you think it's okay.
And I like that tying it back into the question I had asked you. It's beautiful how this self-love and it's just a form of self-love and feeling your body the way that it needs to be able to perform, like, when we go back to my definition of being a man, right? But it allows you to amplify your relationship with your kids and your loved ones and your friends because it overspills into every facet of your life. This isn't just one singular thing to get a good body or to feel a little better. It truly, when you encompass these habits, it allows you to show up in such a more impactful way in your day-to-day life.
I totally agree. I really do. I do want to ask you one question that really grabbed my attention, like really, and I'm sure the audience would be like, dude, if you don't go back and ask her about that, like, because I think all the guys, you said that women use their vaginas for power.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
What do you mean you're not getting laid if I don't get my way? Straight up, think about it. I the amount okay, so I am I get along really well with men. I grew up racing off-road. I love men. I love men the way men love women, essentially. Like, that's what I've always said. I think men are amazing. Um, but I also hear the side story of like, "Man, I haven't had sex in 6 months." And I'm like, "What do you mean you haven't had sex in 6 months? What's going so wrong in your relationship that it's got to that point?" Because sex is the ultimate form of connection. You're truly plugging into another human being, and it's an ultimate energy exchange. So why is it not happening more regularly? Why do you not want that with your partner? Why does your partner not want that with you? And a lot of times, if a female's way is if it's not going the way she wants, or if there's some neglect from the man, say the man's so consumed by work and they're not having the regular date night, they're not doing the regular things, that happens. And then a woman will use her vagina to be able to get her way because it's been so long. Oh, well, do you it's like dangling the carrot. Do you want sex? Do you want to get laid? You want a blowjob? Cool, let's do this. Do this for me, right? And it's like I get my way, then you can get your way. And it no longer it becomes a transaction rather than an actual value exchange. And I believe that's what sex is. For so long I was transactional with sex. I used it for that moment, just that quick hit. That was my vice of choice for a very long time. And the more I've worked on myself, the more I see the value of it and the impact of it, and I'm like, "Damn, I was that girl using her poo-tang just to get her way, like, come on, why we gotta be that way?" Like, there's and that's a woman thing too of and recognizing when you're falling in those patterns because as a woman in society, we're conditioned to believe it's our way or the highway, and it's not that way. A relationship is a two-way street. You have to consider the other person's emotions. It's not just about you. And if you want life to be just about you, do not get in a relationship with another human being because that's not you have to be willing to bend and do things that you don't want to do in certain moments and vice versa or and that goes again with friendships, romantic relationships, family relationships. There always has to be some give and take. You have to consider the other person's feelings.
Hmm. I agree. Yeah, I see this all the time where men are they're not having sex
Yeah.
on the regular, you know, and there's things that are happening outside the bedroom that are contributing. Obviously, they're the biggest contributors, in my opinion, to the things that are not happening in the bedroom. Things outside need to need to align. I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but one of the most attractive things to a woman is the man that you described.
Yeah,
One of the most unattractive things to a woman is the other man that you described.
yeah,
Correct? Yeah.
yeah. 100%. I want a man that has I want a man that has a backbone.
Mhm.
I want somebody to build with. Like
Yeah.
I've worked really hard to build the organizations that I've built and to have these awesome things that help people. I want to be with someone that wants the same. Like
Yeah.
there's a few non-negotiables in my personal side of things, right? Like you gotta be faith, God driven, source driven, whatever. You gotta believe in the universe. You've got to be working on your personal wellness. Like that's a non-negotiable. You have to read every day and journal because those two things, if there's two things that you guys take away from today, you need to start journaling every single day. Just get it out. Even if it's a short thing, you talk about what you're grateful about, what you're struggling with, get it out. And the second thing is read 10 pages of a nonfiction personal development book every day. You learn from other people's experience, and that amplifies your life quickly, so quickly. And it has such a massive impact when you start applying what you read. And it's a really easy habit to implement. And if you start your day with those two things, it's such a game changer for how you show up in everyday life.
I agree. I honestly think consuming, content like that, right? Something that's going to build you up.
Mhm.
I actually do that during my workouts, and it's a total game. Even for my workouts, it's a total game changer, like mentally, right? But yeah, I think those are tactics we could definitely implement. One more question for you, and I'm just curious from a woman's point of view. Why are people, in your opinion, um, fearful to jump into something that will help them grow? So, like for instance, I'll give you an example, and then you've got a program as well. But like I look at we have two programs. One's called the Dad Edge Alliance. One's called the Dad Edge Boardroom. One's for business owners and one's for non-business owners. I can't even tell you, Jesse, how many guys are like, dude, I've been listening to you for 3 years. I've been thinking about this. I was like, you've been thinking about this for 3 years? And they're like, yeah, I've been thinking about it. I finally pulled the trigger. And I'm like, what took you so long? Like, I'm just curious, like, why wait 3 years? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, the theme that I always hear back is they weren't uncomfortable enough yet and they didn't feel enough pain yet. And what I notice is that our tendency is we have to feel so much pain before we take action. But on the flip side, every now and again, like I hosted a call this morning and we had this incredible 26-year-old dude who just joined our community. He doesn't even have kids yet. He's in the dad edge. He doesn't have kids yet. And I'm like, bro, I was like, why are you here? And he's like, I'm gonna be a dad probably within the next 18 months. Why not get ready now? And he used a term that Andy used. He's like, I'm not gonna wait till I'm starving before I start cooking dinner.
Yeah.
And you saw there were 26 other guys on the call and they were like, oh my God. And all these dudes were like, oh my God, dude, if I would have came and done this earlier, like my life would have been better. But I don't understand. I do understand because I was there, but like I just want to know your opinion. Why do people wait so long?
I just hired my first coach, like
Mm,
real coach.
okay.
I've had a coach in the past, but like I just joined the network with the Nutrition Coaching Institute, Jason Phillips. Amazing program. Was too scared to let go of that narrative I created, man. What happens if it does work? What happens? It all comes back to fear. And it's like, yeah, if it works, it's going to be great. Like I know that what I want is on the other side of action, but it's that fear. That change is scary. And it's great. Change it doesn't have to be, right? It's rewiring that narrative and that way that we look at fear, but so often we tell ourselves this story and we allow that story to be our reality and our truth and we live there and we stay there because you know what? It's comfortable and warm and cozy here. And as long as I stay right here, I won't have to be any more than what I currently am. I won't let anyone down. I won't fail. I'm going to put air quotes around that because it's a perspective of whatever failure looks like to you, right? But like, if you're not truly living and taking the risk and committing to yourself and becoming your very best at the end of your life, wouldn't you call that a failure?
I agree.
For too
Like,
long, for too long, I underutilized my strength. And that was long before I became a paraplegic. I underutilized my intelligence, my physical ability. And after I found First Form, that company changed my whole mindset. It's so much more than a supplement or apparel company. It's the people, man. Like being surrounded by people that have similar stories or came from bigger struggle than you ever thought of facing and seeing them be able to make it, like I'm the only problem in my life. I think people need to expose themselves to people that are doing great and listen to their story and understand that that successful person you look up to came from something from the ashes that you're currently navigating through. We all have a story. We all come from hardship. That shouldn't be what stops us to actually using it to be our tool of power.
I agree. You are so inspirational.
I appreciate that.
I mean,
Thank you.
seriously, I could talk to you all day.
I've done so much self-work, man. Like Larry, I've done a lot of deep diving and it's beautiful because this past weekend, um, I got into an argument with my business partner, and I'm like, I didn't want. Usually, my brain injury, I say things that are not nice. I typically don't have a filter, and I speak my mind. And I said what I had to say twice, and then the conversation wasn't changing, wasn't redirecting. And for the first time, I walked away. And there was another friend who was actually one of my first coaching clients back 4 years ago. And so he knew me in the beginning of my coaching journey. And he's like, I'm so proud of that growth that you left the situation and you didn't stay and argue because in the past you would have stayed and argued until you won. And you said, no, I don't have to win. And I think it's understanding those situations, acknowledging your growth and being proud of that growth that's going to allow you to continue to grow. Because if you're not seeing progress, it's just like a weight loss journey. If you're not seeing progress, you're not going to continue those steps to do the thing, right? And if you're not seeing tangible wins and getting small wins, you're not going to do that. So it's same in your personal development journey. You've got to be super self-aware to recognize, oh, I'm acting out of sorts right now. Like a big one again as a woman, when my cycle comes, I get a little bit aggressive and as other women do, right? And so now I'm at a point where I know my period's coming before my predictive app tells me because I'm so in tune with my emotions that I'm like, why am I so emotional right now? I'm feeling emotionally driven. I'm feeling so just on edge. And then I'll go look at the app and my period's 2-3 days away from starting and I'm like, recognizing how you're feeling, how situations make you feel, how people make you feel. You've got to become so in tune with who you are and what makes you tick and click and sets you off and makes you rage, what's productive, what's not, from food to drinks to people to content to literally every aspect of your life. You need to audit it. And when you understand exactly what makes you tick and what makes you do, life becomes so much easier. I'm so just like even kill, laid back, hanging out because I understand myself emotionally. And I really, really, really encourage anyone listening to this. You need to understand yourself emotionally if you want to go out in the world and succeed at a high level.
I agree. I agree. I'm curious, what does the rest of 2024 look like for you as far as like competitions or events or
Yeah.
like what are you doing the rest of the year?
Oh, man. Well, number 1, finishing the book. We're in the final draft right now, getting final reads going. It's called Power in the Role. It's been a long 3-year process. I'm finally excited to see the finish line. Not quite there yet, so look out for that later this year. My nonprofit Wheel with Me Foundation is putting on our annual summer camp. Our third summer camp will be this July in Maine. My business, Freedom Longevity and Wellness, we're hosting a couple of local events and working on our summer block party in July. Really excited for that. It's here in Lake Norman, North Carolina. If anyone's local, we'd love to have you through. And then personally, I'm competing in the CrossFit Games in September. And I'm honestly really excited. So it's funny that you said that you sold hardware, the titanium hardware that goes into spines, because I have broken my spinal fusion twice in my 9 years of being paralyzed. One time I broke one rod in half and the two lower screws and had it revised. And then in August, I actually just had a full spinal revision where they removed my hardware from T2 to L1 and then put a shorter fusion in because some of those bones had fused. So I'm now fused from T2 to T10, I believe. So it's a little shorter because I had broke both those rods in half. So I qualified for the adaptive CrossFit Games. I finished 7th, 9 months post-op from a major spine surgery. But I did 75 hard to prepare for surgery. So all last summer, I was in a spine back brace to keep my back stable because of that broken fusion. I was unstable there, and I didn't want to another layer to the onion. I actually started recovering from my spinal cord injury, and so I've regained sensation and movement below my level of injury. And I know.
Oh
And
my
so I
gosh.
didn't want anything to happen. So last summer to prepare for surgery, I did 75 hard in that back brace. I had a 14% increase in my endurance. I was discharged from the hospital in 3 days. I was off of all pain meds within a week, and I was on a flight giving a keynote to the Social Security Administration and Ticket to Work program 3 weeks post-op. Like, we have to
Wow.
prepare for life. We can't wait for life to happen. You've got to be preparing. And it doesn't matter if you have a physical ailment, a mental ailment, an emotional ailment, you've got to continue to show up. Most days, I don't want to do anything. I am one of the laziest people I know. I don't want to work. I don't want to do anything. But I know that if I don't do it, I'm not going to get the result I desire. So you have to ask yourself, how bad do I want this result? Do I truly want it as bad as I say? Cool, then I'm going to show up regardless of how I feel. And you just start stacking wins. At first, you might win 2, 3 days in a row. Cool, good on you. That 2, 3 days, the next week, let's shoot for 4. The next week, 5. Next thing you know, you're executing 7 days a week and you're that much closer to where you want to be physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. But it's up to you to do the things and execute regardless of whatever narrative and excuse you try to create for yourself.
Mm. God, this was awesome. Can we do like the Jesse and Larry show? Like,
Yeah,
and we
man.
just inspire everybody all week long.
The next time I'm in St. Louis, like,
Please.
I'm definitely saying I cannot believe that, or we would have definitely did this in person.
No kidding. Please ping me next time you're here in St. Louis.
Absolutely.
I would love to like, like I said, I would love to break bread. Me and my wife take you out to dinner.
Yeah.
I would just love to meet you. Just because like you're an amazing positive inspiration and just your energy level. And by the way, like I love the fact that this isn't like fluff either. You're very honest. Like you're like on most days I don't feel like doing this stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's actually most people. I think people are under the assumption that people that are out there executing like every day that they always feel like doing that, but they don't. Like if you read that book Relentless by Tim Grover,
Best
the
book. I love
his
I
best
I
book,
love
yeah.
Relentless.
The cleaners, right, are the ones that they are so obsessed with the result that they're willing to do the work whether they feel like it or not. I'll never forget that chapter. They become obsessed with the result, so they do not give into their feelings when it comes to the work.
You
So,
know, I tell my business partner all the time. He's a it's social media is amazing. We met online, and then he had me come into Freedom. I originally didn't own Freedom. I came in about a month after they opened. They got screwed over from the start through a licensing agreement. This individual stole like $100,000 from them and didn't deliver on the modalities, nothing. So when they first opened, they were still bleeding from that and they weren't able to cover rent the next day. And I truly believe in the mission of what we're doing. We're helping so many people off pain meds, just being able to go out and live life fully. We're helping elderly age with grace. It's so powerful and impactful what we get to do. And I felt that every time I went in. So I was like, I want in. When the opportunity came, I invested. And I think it's so important to set yourself up for when life happens for you and when these situations come, because it's like, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, where like you're going and it feels like you're not getting anywhere, and then all of a sudden this opportunity comes and you're like, let me take it. And so my business partner is like my accountability partner. He literally is that person that keeps me in line. He checks me. It's great. And I like the way that you said it's moving. How'd you say it? It's going forward, because you guys are growing forward. You're not checking. I like the way you and your wife do that. I might have to take that back to the facility. But it's like we truly become who we're surrounded by. And so if you're not where you want to be, pay attention to who you've been around. Pay attention to who's keeping you accountable, and really recognize of like, hey, do I want to be like these people that I'm spending my time with? That was really, really, really a big one for me. And I found myself isolated for a little bit because I was surrounding myself with people that I didn't want the life they were living. I didn't like the things we were doing. I wasn't enjoying myself, but I was still there to maintain this relationship because of the time that I had already invested in it. Don't continue to invest your time into things that aren't filling your cup.
Yeah.
100%. And make sure that you recognize what fills your cup. You recognize what's going to really help you get to where you want to go. Um, because too often we're just floating around letting life happen to us.
Which I think is the wrong approach. And these things, which I'm holding up my cell phone.
Okay, I have to tell you, I wish my phone wasn't 3 feet away and I could just pop and grab it. Matt Vincent this past weekend gave me the biggest hack. Okay.
Let's hear it.
Change your cell phone to the grayscale and make it where you click the button 3 times and it will go back to color for when you're editing. Your phone is so boring. It's so
Wait,
boring.
what?
I've had my
How do
phone
you?
set on it since Saturday.
Is this an iPhone?
Yes. So you go to settings, accessibility, display, color filters.
Wait a second. So display,
Yep.
color filters.
Yep.
I don't see that on here.
It's at the very bottom.
Very bottom.
It's under accessibility. So
Hmm.
it's settings, accessibility,
Oh, accessibility. Okay, sorry.
yeah, and then display within accessibility.
All right, bear with me, guys. We're gonna
That's
do this right now.
yeah, you have to, because now your phone,
Ooh.
the world looks so much more greener. I microdose in the wintertime to help with seasonal depression. And the big thing about microdosing that I love is that it makes the world go from tube TV to high def. Turning your phone to grayscale does that without any type of substance at all.
Interesting. So okay, I'm on accessibility. Then I do what?
Display should be
Display.
like right at the top in the top
I
3.
see it. Display and text size.
Yep, and you scroll down to the bottom
Okay.
and it's color filters,
Okay.
and then turn it to grayscale, and then you're gonna go back to that main accessibility one,
Okay.
scroll all the way to the bottom again,
Okay.
accessibility shortcuts,
Hang on. Okay, got it.
and then click, color filters,
Okay.
and now click your lock button 3 times,
Okay.
and it should switch back and forth between color and gray.
It did.
Perfect. So when you're editing a video or you actually wanna consume content in the form it's meant to be, you can turn it back to color. But I've left my phone on black and white this morning. I woke up, I looked at my phone and turned my alarm off, and I shut it right back off. It was not appealing at all. It makes it where you're just not into it. Thank you, Matt Vincent.
That is so weird. I'm not just saying this because you're on, but I'm like, I just opened Instagram and I'm just like, God, without the colors, it
Look at your explore page. Yeah.
doesn't,
Look how boring.
it's weird. Like even
No
the
more doom
Facebook,
scrolling.
I wonder if it's because like everything like just blends together. It doesn't look as vibrant or whatever. But yeah, it definitely lowers my interest in wanting to look at the phone. That's weird.
It's taking away that dopamine hit.
Yeah, it is. That's wild. It's fascinating, but kind of more to that, right? I had, and I know we're going way over. Are you okay on time?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
good.
So I was I had this sort of like I have this brain like I like to like kind of like go into the future of like sort of like a rabbit hole, like in a way. Like if I see something, like I'll kind of rabbit hole it and be like, what is the extreme of what I'm seeing? Like what could actually happen, right? And so last night, my 16-year-old had his girlfriend over and they're downstairs on the couch and they're watching a Netflix, something or another. While they're on Netflix, they were both actually each of them on their phones. So they have a screen on and each one of them have a screen. And just for a second, like I was so tempted to be like, why y'all even have the TV on? Right. I want to say that, but I'm like, it's just gonna
Not
make
worth
them,
it.
it's gonna make them do that even more. But I started having this weird like rabbit hole kind of vision about the future. And what I mean by that is like I started thinking like, what is this gonna be like when my son has kids and he is a 16-year-old? Like, is it gonna be like they're watching TV, they have a phone, they have an iPad, and maybe they're also going back and forth to the VR and no human being ever actually gets up and moves. All they do is switch screens and devices, and they need actually multiple devices at the same time in order to fulfill like maybe that's that dopamine. And I fall into this too. Like I'll be watching TV like with my family and I'll be like, I should probably see what's going on, like or check my email real quick. So I am actually doing the screen on the screen. But like what I've noticed is over time, what I'm watching on TV isn't exciting enough. So like I want to like something else. So I'm sitting there thinking like, what if a human being like 20 years from now has got like four screens in front of them at all times and all they do is just switch what they're watching and they never get up and they never do anything. And then I started thinking like, oh, must be like another conspiracy theory where the people just want us fat and out of shape and like just sitting down and comfortable and
It's not a
all that.
conspiracy. It's
Yeah.
happening. It's happening. We have an obesity problem
Yeah.
across the board. I mean, look, I started really, really, really paying attention. And especially because I travel twice a month for work. So I'm in airports regularly. Just look around.
Oh, it's
It's
everywhere.
sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad, but we're already technically kind of in that screen thing. Think about how many people I call it app surfing, where you'll open Instagram, go to Facebook, close Facebook, go to your email, close your email, go to messages, close your messages, go to TikTok, close TikTok, go back to Instagram, and you repeat that cycle. How many of us app surf? So technically, we're already in that space of having all these screens. It just is in the form of surfing different applications until we get that little hit and then it's like, "Ooh, I need another one." I believe I'm gonna actually post this video in a couple of days. I made a video the other week where I talk about how we're all addicts, all of us. Just some are more extreme. I was addicted to drinking before I got paralyzed. Now I'm addicted to food and coffee, and if I'm not careful, I'll overconsume both. Same thing with THC. I've used cannabis to get off pain pills. But if I'm not careful, I'll overconsume, and on next thing I know, I'm abusing cannabis. It is very easy to go down that slippery slope, and a lot of us, most of us are addicted. We're addicted to our phone. Take away your phone. I've made it a practice. I leave my phone in the car when I go grocery shopping. I use a written list. Just 1, it saves time because you're not constantly opening your phone and looking at things and app surfing again while trying to do another task. But 2, it's peace.
Yeah.
Right, and another thing I started implementing is, so I gosh, it's probably 23, 24, and I talked to this successful local business owner. He had an online vape store, generated a couple $1,000,000 a year, and we were talking, and he's like, "Yeah, I ride in silence from point A to point B," and I'm like, "What do you mean, you don't listen to, like, a podcast or something?" And he's like, "No, I ride in silence," and I never understood until probably the last year, 2 years, that silence is
It's gold.
cold.
It's
Gold.
gold. It really is. We started about a year ago. I got, I interviewed, and I'm sharing this because what you're saying, I think a lot of people just aren't aware of. And I like I could virtually like hug you right now because it's like, man, like what you're saying is so much truth, but so many people don't know that. Like the reduction of stress and anxiety and freedom, and it's almost like a breath of fresh air when you don't have this device like hooked to you at all times is unbelievable. So like I was introduced to a product that we partnered with about a year ago, and we're very, I mean, we only have 3 partners. That's it. First Form, RO, which I'm about ready to talk about, and Bark. That's it. Bark is for kids and their phones, keep them safe. Parents have an app that can track like horrible things that might happen to them, that kind of thing. And then First Form, you and I know that. But
Yep.
then RO, we probably get pinged, I would say, anywhere from 2 to 3 times a month with different stuff that people want us to partner with, and that kind of, we always say no. But RO, well, and let me go back to this. Like, so we go back to like I always go back to our core values as a mission for families and dads and marriages and that kind of thing. And the filter I always run everything that we partner through with, does this move the mission of families who can connect forward, right? So like a healthier dad, First Form, that one's easy, right?
Yeah.
Bark, keeping your kids safe with devices, that one's easy. RO is fascinating because it's a box that's approved by wives as far as decorative. It looks very, very good. Like it looks like it should be sitting on a counter. It's like a beautiful like box. But inside, you open it up and it's got 4 charging stations and 4 slots for your phone. And then it comes with an app that measures how much time you're spending away from your phone. And I'm not talking about in the car. I'm not talking about, oh, it's on the counter. Oh, it's on my nightstand. It's in this box. And you can't, you just, you don't get to it. And that's how it measures. Or you could do this. You could actually, they now updated the app where you can actually go to the app and say, I want to start an RO session. And you just hit the thing and you have to hit the phone face down. But as soon as you pick it up, it,
It shuts it
it
off.
ends the session. So the goal is to log so many, like for me, my goal is to log 30 hours a week, give or take, right?
Mm.
A minimum 15. And so I've been using that for ever since the beginning of the year. Since the beginning of the year, because I just interviewed a guy, one of the guys who owns the company, and I was like, hey, I was like, is there a way I can actually see like how much time I've spent away from my phone, like since inception? He's like, oh yeah, just do this, this, and this. I spent in 5 months 9 full 24-hour days, just shy 5 hours of 10 days away from my phone. And I was like, oh my, that's like 2 full days a month gone. And it doesn't sound like a lot when you stretch it out over like 5 months,
But it's a
but
lot.
like it was like almost 200 and it was 230 hours in 5 months. And I'm sitting here thinking like, it just, every time I put my phone away, like for those hours from 5 to 9, or like at the minimum, I go from like, I try to do it in that window for at least 2 hours, maximum, 4 or 5 hours. But the amount of stress and anxiety that I feel lowers tremendously. And when I first started doing like this practice, I always thought I'm going to miss out on something. It's actually going to cause me more stress, right? Because then I'm going to pick up my phone. I'm like, oh my God, I got so much crap to do now. I have so many like things I have to respond to or whatever. You know what was really fascinating, Jesse?
Anything to respond.
There wasn't hardly anything. In fact, you know what I have found after spending, now it's well past 10 days. I am actually me, the biggest culprit in how busy that phone gets. Because if I take action on the phone, that's when things come in. But if I don't do anything, very little comes in. And I'm like, oh my God, like I am literally the person in the mirror is the one who's in this vicious cycle and thinking that, and all I'm doing is like spinning plates on swords. So I'm just like, well, now I have proof that if I put this thing down, I'm actually less busy and less stressed if I'm the one who's not using it. It's fascinating.
The best thing I ever did was turning off notifications.
Yeah, right.
All of them. I don't even get phone calls. It's amazing. Unless the phone's open and in my hand, that's the only way people are reaching me, or if I call them back. I
Mhm.
just and my one-on-one clients, like, the only notifications I get are from my one-on-ones or, like, my coaching clients, but that's it. I don't get Instagram, I don't get email, I don't get my personal messages, I don't get my phone calls through my because I use an app for all my business stuff, and so that app is the only app that has notifications on my phone. That's it. And I did this in 2018 when I first started my journey really, and have never went back. Best decision I ever made. Not seeing that little red badge, not having things constantly popping up on my screen constantly going off. My phone pretty much stays in do not disturb mode as well. My favorite thing that Eric Thomas ever said, and it's stuck with me all these years, is right number, wrong time. Like, you got the right number, but it's the wrong time. I'm busy. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
It's truly not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's me. Oh my gosh. This has been awesome. I know we've gone way over time as far as, it's funny. I asked in our community, like in our dad edge community, we have about 20,000 guys in there. This is our free group. And I asked the guys, I was like, hey, is there any content that you guys want to hear more about? Or things, and the guys were like, oh, patience or marriage or communication or connection. One guy was like, is there any way you could do longer podcasts, like 2.5, 3 hours? And I'm like a Joe Rogan, right? And
Oh, man.
I was like, are you I responded back. I was like, are you serious? I was like, I already run podcasts that are between 45 minutes and an hour and 15 minutes normally. I was like, and that's kind of long. I was like, because so many people are consuming short form content. And he was like, yeah, but I really like the deep stuff, which I think for you and I today, we did the deep stuff.
I think we got there.
I think we got there. So there you
This
go,
one's for you,
Dennis.
friend.
So good stuff.
Yeah,
Jesse, thank you so much. I want to make sure that the guys can find you,
yeah,
connect with you. What is the best way for them to do that?
absolutely. So first, please follow my organizations, Freedom LKN, and you can find us freedomlkn.com, Freedom LKN on Instagram. Wheel With Me Foundation. If you want a nonprofit to support, we will gladly have you come join us. If you want to volunteer, we're accepting volunteers right now. Wheel With Me Adapt Fit. That's the fitness application. And we also have a private Facebook group. You can join my free group. It's Freedom Longevity and Wellness on Facebook. I would love to have you come and join the Freedom Fam. It's a really good time. And yeah, you can find me personally. Gosh, my name is Jesi Stracham. It's like a straw you drink from, ham you eat, but it looks like Stracham, Stracham, on all major platforms. And if you gained a nugget from this today, like, share that nugget specifically with a friend when you share the podcast. Be like, yo, Jesse said this about, women and how they use their vagina as power. Cool. Share that with a friend. Get them to listen because Larry does do this. He spends his time doing this, and it's a resource for you. So please support him by sharing his show.
I love you, man. I
Yeah.
love you so
Love you.
much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your time and this energy exchange. It's just such a blessing. And I cannot wait to meet you and your wife.
Same here. As soon as you come in town, we're gonna take you out to dinner. It'll be
Heck
fun.
yeah. We'll be just squared.
That's just squared, right? So much Jess. Yes, yes. I love it. Awesome. Thank you for coming on. Gents, like I said, if you head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday 164, we'll make it really easy for you to connect with Jesse if you want to. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday 164. For this show, we'll have all of Jesse's links in the show notes, as well as all kinds of goodies in there for you as well that we mentioned during the middle of the show. Gentlemen, go out, live legendary, and most importantly, be a good man who leads with his North Star, with his compass, right? From the heart. Take care of yourself. It's one of the most selfless things you can do. Make sure you take care of yourself, your personal development, your growth, your physical fitness, your mental and emotional well-being. You will serve others around you, just as Jesse said, more powerfully. Go out and live legendary, gentlemen.